All right, guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, I'm going to read an article titled, Why Aren't We Making More Progress Towards Gender Equity? And guys, this article is written by a woman, and as you can probably imagine, in her view, she believes that things have not gone far enough in terms of things being equal in the workplace, and there's a whole ton of problems because obviously things are not equal and all that. And when I read this, I just had to laugh because from what I've observed and a lot of women I've talked to, because, I do know a lot of women that, obviously, and I have a lot of female clients, and I talk to them about some of these things that do come up, Some of them know about my channel and think it's pretty funny. I have a client, she says that, no joke, she says, I hate some of the things you say, but you're right. Okay, but anyhow, and I ask them certain questions about things that I cover, and they pretty much agree with me that, from my perspective on things, even if they don't like some of the things I say. And with regards to the workplace, guess what? They feel things are pretty equal, and they don't feel, disadvantaged in any way, shape, or form. But no matter what, guys, you're always going to have people that they got to make a mountain out of a molehill. They got to create some drama because that's their thing. And this whole article is just about that. Her finding anything to just basically say, hey, there's inequality and that we still have ways to go and blah, blah, blah. And I'm sure many of you guys at work at some point have known people like this. And it can go both ways. There are guys that can stir up a bunch of drama too, don't get me wrong, but this is a men's channel and we're focusing on this particular issue here about the equality between, guys and gals in the workplace. And so I'm going to go through this here, guys, and I'm going to point out her BS along the way. And you're going to see her try to make this case, but a lot of it really is just making mountains out of a molehill, creating drama, and she's going to always refer to her research, the research that she has conducted for this particular article. And I always question when people have to do their research, because I have to wonder if people, when they do their research for whatever thing they're trying to, bring light to, is that research biased? And I'm willing to bet you 9 times out of 10 it often is, to obviously back up their own point of view and conclusions. So anyhow, I'm going to jump into this, guys, and you guys can judge for yourselves, like I have, whether she's warranted in some of these views or not warranted. So it starts off, organizations have worked towards achieving gender equality for decades. They've invested resources into developing women's careers. They've implemented bias awareness training. Until today, I've never actually heard that term, bias awareness training. Good Lord. Those at the top, including many CEOs, have made public commitments to make their workplaces more fair and equitable. And still, despite all this, progress towards gender equality has been limited. How much possible more gender equality do you need in the workplace? You got to be kidding me. Now, I don't want anybody to feel unsafe in the workplace. Obviously, you've heard stories about, you have women being harassed and things like that, and that type of thing does happen, okay? And obviously, very horrible stories that go on with there. Okay, I'm cool with that, and that shouldn't happen. But she's not talking about that. She's talking about just everything being fair and blah, 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 blah. How much possible fair can you get? In fact, many managers struggle to recognize gender inequalities in daily workplace interactions. Maybe because the manager's job is actually meant to be helping run that company, helping these companies and workplaces do what they're set up to do. Provide a service to their clients and customers, to build new products and things like that, again, for their clients and customers, not spending all their time dealing with this in-house drama. Okay, that's not the point of the business. The point of the business is to make money. Now, again, I don't want anybody to feel unsafe in a workplace or anything like that, or things like that. But you go through these articles and you think that the sole purpose of the company is meant to deal with this type of stuff, politics. That's not what they're set up for. And for a lot of these people, just they're always got to find some drama. You know what? Start your own business. Okay. Start your own business, and you can and hire people and see how long it takes before you're losing your mind over things like this, and people like you that make mountains out of molehills and stir up drama to stir up drama. She says here, my research, and I guarantee this is biased research, my research has shown that one of the reasons for this gap between awareness and action is what I call gender fatigue. That's another new term that I can add to the list of BS terms that I'm learning through my studies and articles for this channel. This is the phenomenon of simultaneously acknowledging that gender inequality exists in general while denying that it exists in one's immediate work environment. I've observed this in numerous studies I've conducted over the last 2 decades, including ethnographic studies and interviews with 150 individuals, from professional service managers to public sector broadcasters, from MBAs, students to CEOs. Again, I have to question about her research, okay? Is it random people, or is it she's been careful to pick and choose who she interviews for her research? Because, you know, if she spends all this time doing this and doesn't get the results that she wants to back up her own point of view, that could be seen as a waste of time. I guarantee it. Anytime there's a research done, guys, there's obviously funding going on there, and people that do research probably want to make the people that are funding it and things like that happy. So there's always a little bias. I never buy into this unbiased research. I think it's a bunch of nonsense. In my interviews, I identified 4 ways in which people made sense of this mismatch between their support for gender inequality and the denial that exists in the immediate work environment. The first rationalization is that gender inequality exists elsewhere, perhaps at another organization such as a competitor or in a different country. The second is based on a historical perspective. Gender inequality exists in the past, say 20 years ago, but not today. That's because tremendous strides have been made over the decades, okay? And women are in a great place. And if things are so bad, why is it so many women are in these high-level positions, make damn good money, obviously statistically have more degrees than men, not that they're actually necessary, but they have more degrees than men. Women are doing pretty damn well, okay? You know, nowadays, you have plenty of women, whether this is working or not, they have careers, they make a lot of money, they end up becoming single moms. Now, we all know where that can lead to, but regardless, they can do it, and in that regard, they don't need a guy because they can make enough money on their own and take care of things. So I don't want to hear all this drama and this making mountains out of molehill about how bad things are, because guess what? They're not that bad. And again, I talk to women, I ask questions about these things, and I've yet to hear complaints about the type of things that she's bringing up here. She says, the third is the claim that gender inequality can't exist anymore because women are now given advantages in organizations. Right. All the efforts to fix unequal opportunities, the logic goes, have made it far easier for women to succeed. Right. Again, it's proof. You got tons of extremely successful women out there in all levels of things. And you know what? If they're working hard for it and they're doing well for themselves, cool. Good for you. But I want to hear about this crap about things are still bad and there's still more that can be done. What more can be done? Okay, but you got your excuse to write an article here and get attention. The final way that people recognize these contradictory beliefs was to strategically ignore gender inequality. We got to make a drinking game out of this. Every time she says that word, gender inequality, take a shot. When presented with incidents of discrimination, they would say that it had nothing to do with gender. Well, in her view, everything has to do with gender. Here are some examples of how this plays out. I spoke to several people who were part of the incident surrounding Carolyn, an esteemed professional and expert in her field. In a meeting with a client, the client asked her to take meeting notes and bring coffee for everyone else. Uh-oh. I see where this is going. Even though Carolyn holds a senior position, requests like these have been shown to hold back women's careers and are a form of, wait for it, sexism. But reflecting on the incident, Carolyn herself described it as long in the past and explained that it was all resolved without issues. Carolyn's line manager, eager to retain the client, removed Carolyn from the project swiftly. Her manager described the situation as a lack of chemistry with the client and felt it had nothing to do with gender. Let me tell you something. If that client asked a guy to go grab a cup of coffee or something like that, this wouldn't be a problem. Back in the day, I have an accountant, and he has a private practice now, but back in the day when he worked for a big accounting firm, I'd go see him a few times a year. And in the meeting, because we were there a couple hours doing business, he'd say, hey, would you like a cup of coffee? I said, sure. And he sent one of his guys to get me coffee. Okay? Big deal. He's doing a gesture for the client. Okay? But this happens to be a woman in the incident. So, of course, mountain out of molehills being made here, because God forbid you ask me to get a coffee, because back in the day, that's, typically women, we're going to go back to like this Mad Men type of environment here where the women were secretaries and they'd get coffee and things like that. But God forbid in today's world, if that's ever asked. But if they asked a guy to do this, big deal. Next one, another example, Nicholas. After the birth of his daughter, got involved in promoting gender equality at his company, hoping it would help him to advance in the organization. Yet his daily actions were at odds with his purported support of women. He favored his male colleagues when it came to giving career advice or mentoring, and he had the habit of ignoring women's contributions in meetings. Well, maybe he just simply clicked better with the male colleagues or the guys that are under him. Or maybe, just maybe, he wanted to avoid one-on-one with the female colleagues or people that worked under him because of the current environment of M2. And I'm speaking in code, but I'm sure you guys can figure out what I mean when I say M2. It doesn't want any possibility of anything being said or misunderstood and getting him in trouble, jeopardizing his career. With regards to ignoring their contributions in the meetings, maybe they weren't good ideas. Maybe they weren't relevant. Or maybe that simply define the acknowledging contributions. Does he have to verbally say something in the meeting, or is it okay to say something afterwards? Again, one has to... This is coming from her perspective on things. It could be taken totally different by somebody else looking at the situation. She says, when I spoke with him and his coworkers about how this behavior could be seen as excluding women, everyone was quick to dismiss it, and everyone had an explanation. Well, maybe they really did have a good, solid explanation in spite of her bringing this thing up. For instance, Nicholas often gave career advice to people who showed up at the company's sporting events, and he and his colleagues rationalized that women simply didn't turn up for those. Maybe Nicholas, the manager, simply bonded very well with the male colleagues, and the story the way a female boss might bond better with the female colleagues. Nothing wrong with that. But for people like her, this is an opportunity to stir up more drama. Similarly, I can't read very well. Similarly, they said that he was simply trying to keep the meeting on time, and that's why he had to cut off his female colleagues. Nicholas continued to receive praise for being a gender equality champion within his organization. So, because he wasn't doing it in a way that matched up with her views and perspective on things, he's seen as a bad guy. But everybody else sees him as a good guy, really trying to make things fair and equal and all that type of stuff. Again, it all comes down to perspective. And no matter what, guys, you cannot make everybody happy. Nobody can, for instance, let's say here with YouTube, you start a channel on YouTube and you cover a subject. No matter what, you're going to have people that are going to disagree with you. You're going to have people that are going to outright hate you for your point of views. You cannot make everybody happy no matter what you do. And these situations when they're examining the workplace, you're not going to always make somebody happy, and somebody's always going to have some excuse to complain and piss and moan and things like that. It's unfortunate human nature. Another example, Thomas, a senior leader at his company, was asked to speak to the organization's women's network. The meeting included an open conversation where women shared some of the issues they faced because of their gender, including being cut out of deals, navigating a culture of long hours, which was incompatible with family life, and receiving sexist comments from colleagues. Well, I'm going to stop right there, talking about they're having issues being cut out of deals and navigating a culture of long hours. Well, it's okay for the male employees to work long hours, but it's not okay for the female employees to work long hours. Correct me if I'm wrong, but if that's a requirement of the job position, if both parties, male and female, both are required to work the long hours, that is called equality. If the guys had to work the long hours, but the female employees didn't do it because of obviously issues with family compatibility, that wouldn't be equality, okay? That would be called special treatment. In my view, you get a job and your job requires a long hours. That's explained before you take the job. And if you choose to take that position within a company, that's on you. And if those long hours, which cut you away from family time, is an issue, then you have to seek other employment. That's it. So right here, it's not talking about inequality. It's very equal if both parties have to work the long hours. So I don't want to hear about that. Goes on. Thomas listened to all this and then simply said that this wasn't his experience of the organization. He essentially, and this is her view, he essentially invalidated the women's experiences, and not surprisingly, many women stopped sharing their concerns. Well, again, like I said before, this is from their perspective. She goes on, gender inequality is the result of a multitude of small-scale incidents like these that add up over time. Right there, she just said small scale, meaning minor, not a big deal, but again, make mountains out of a molehill. Seemingly unimportant events are regularly regarded as small annoyances, there's a key word there, that don't matter in the bigger picture. And gender fatigue makes these daily incidents essentially invisible. People like her, you're never going to make happy. 20 years, there could be more improvement in her view, and she'll still find something to nitpick about. So what steps can managers take to overcome gender fatigue and recognize the incidents in their organization that create and perpetuate inequalities? Here we go. First, it is important to recognize the temptation in an attempt to affirm that their organization is equal to ignore instances where daily gender inequalities exist. Managers need to acknowledge the paradox and the reality. So again, instead of managers spending their time making sure the organization, the company, if you will, is doing what it has to do to stay in existence and to make money and provide the proper services to their clients and customers or the products, they got to spend more and more time dealing with this in-house drama. Second, managers need to refrain the recognition of inequality as a learning opportunity, not an exercise in assigning blame. Instead of feeling guilty that people, including themselves, are engaging in exclusionary practices, they should think creatively about what they can do differently. Call me crazy, but I don't think these guys, or gals for that matter, are sitting around feeling guilty about these things that, in her view, one should feel guilty about. They're busy working, damn it. If they're faced with a similar situation in the future, how would they act? Some managers keep a notebook, physical or digital, of such learning moments and record changes in their behavior over time. The act of writing down what they're observing encourages self-reflection, and the notebook itself is a good reminder to notice incidents that they wouldn't do otherwise. Well, speaking of notebooks, she can just go watch the movie The Notebook instead of bothering people trying to do their jobs. Third, they need to help others, both men and women, to see gender inequality. Again, this is going to boil down to one's perspective. My research, again back to her research, shows that many women have developed sophisticated coping mechanisms to ignore the role gender plays at work and may believe that they don't experience inequality. Maybe because they don't think they are experiencing gender inequality. Maybe things are going quite well for them, and they're probably annoyed by people like her that are poking at them saying, hey, you should be offended by that. That's insensitive. You should speak up about that. And in their view, they're thinking, shut the hell up. Goes on. So once managers start noticing gender inequalities, they should point them out to others and facilitate corrective action. For instance, if they notice that a woman's point of view is ignored in a meeting, managers can amplify her comment and attribute it to her. Or they might decide to have a private conversation with the individual who ignored the woman's conversation or contribution. What is this, the third grade? We're going to pull you aside and say, I don't like how you made that person feel. That wasn't very nice, Billy. If managers acknowledge gender fatigue and modify their behavior now, this opens the possibility of wider change within organizations. The goal is to create a culture where gender equality can be openly discussed without assigning blame or guilt. And instead, people at all levels of the organization can be proactive about modifying their daily behaviors. Until we stop denying inequality exists in our own organizations, it will be impossible to make any progress. And if you listen to her, then everybody can sit around and hold hands and get a cookie. Guys, this is what we deal with. This is how things are in this world, no matter what. This is the end of the article, by the way. No matter what, there are people you can't make happy. This is ridiculous. Things have come so far. And like I said before, I talk to women about these things because I'm curious, their point of views and perspectives. And it helps me do well in this channel when I get real life feedback. And guess what? I've not yet found one that has an issue with things today, okay? Now, one might say, well, SSM, you live in Massachusetts. And Massachusetts is a liberal state. Yeah, I got that. After the last 10 years of living here, I know it's a liberal state. But even still, I do know other people in other states. And again, I haven't heard any issues. So, but I'm sure there's going to be somebody that's going to watch this and make issues and complain. Fine, that's your business. But the reality is things have moved so far forward. And again, women are doing so well. You can see in the statistics in terms of earnings and job positions and things like that. More are starting their own businesses and all that. And if they're working hard for it and they're doing well, good for them. But I don't want to hear people coming in and just looking for things to stir up drama. That pisses me off. That's ridiculous, okay? But these people exist. It's going to always happen. And so, believe me, things are not as bad as this particular gal writing this article is. But she got her reason to write her article and got paid and all that. So, but I also have the freedom to find articles like these and talk about them and call BS where it exists. And, of course, have fun making fun of them. So, anyhow, guys, that is it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. Let me know in your opinion, both men and women, because I got women that watch me. If things have not advanced enough, let me know. I'd like to hear about it. And be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.